For months, Hyun had remained noticeably quiet whenever questions about his marriage surfaced. Reporters asked, fans speculated. Tabloids built entire narratives around fleeting moments, but the actor consistently stepped back, offering nothing more than polite smiles and vague reassurances. That silence finally broke earlier this week inside a softly lit ballroom at the Shilla Hotel in Seoul, where he appeared for what was initially announced as a press briefing for his upcoming film. But as soon as he took the stage, clear that this afternoon was about something far more personal. Hyun looked calm yet contemplative as he greeted the room, a man prepared not to promote a project but to reveal a truth he had carried for too long. The cameras were already rolling, their red lights glowing like tiny watchful eyes. He took a breath, leaned closer to the microphone, and in a voice steadier than expected, he said, "There are things about my marriage that I've never spoken about. I want to share some of them honestly." A hush swept through the hall. This was the moment countless fans and followers had been waiting for, the first raw, unfiltered confession from Korea's most admired leading man about the reality behind one of the nation's most celebrated marriages. But to understand the weight of his revelation, one had to revisit the beginning, back to the wedding that had captured global attention. When Hyun and son Ye-jin married in what the media hailed as the crash-landing wedding, they were instantly crowned Korea's ultimate power couple. The ceremony looked like a fairy tale brought to life, elegant, serene, wrapped in flowers, smiles, and the dizzying glow of two megastars joining their paths. Fans worldwide believed they were stepping into a life of effortless bliss. But as Hyun explained, beneath the flawless surface was a pressure few people could fully grasp. After the wedding, everything we did was watched, he said quietly. Every outing, every photo, every absence became a headline. The attention intensified as son Ye-jin revealed her pregnancy. Cameras followed them relentlessly, blogs speculated about their moods, their expressions, even their clothes. The couple appeared composed on the outside. The truth was far more complicated. Hyun admitted that the public scrutiny had created an invisible tension that hovered in their home. Subtle but persistent. He paused during the interview, choosing his words with care. "I wanted to shield her from it," he said. "But sometimes, the pressure reached us before we could protect ourselves." The reporters remained silent, absorbing the weight of the admission. It was the first time Hyun had openly acknowledged that fame, something he had lived with since his youth, had seeped into his marriage in ways he could no longer ignore. Then came the second truth, their conflicting schedules. Hyun revealed that shortly after the wedding, he returned to an overseas project. Meanwhile, son Ye-jin had commitments of her own, commercial shoots, brand events, script readings. They were newlyweds living in separate time zones. What was supposed to be their honeymoon phase became a cycle of hurried texts, late-night calls, and constant travel. "There were days we barely saw each other," he admitted. "Some weeks, we met only when I stopped by the house for 10 minutes before heading to the airport again." He described one evening in particular, exhausted from filming abroad. He rushed to catch a flight just so he could spend a few minutes with her in person. "I sat beside her, held her hand for a moment, and then had to leave again," he said softly. "It wasn't enough, but it was all we had. Those brief meetings, those short and fragile, what kept them connected." Yet the emotional distance that came with physical separation created misunderstandings. A message read too late, a phone call missed due to exhaustion. These small moments began to snowball into quiet frustrations neither had the energy to address properly. "We weren't communicating well," Hyun confessed, eyes lowering. "Not because we didn't love each other, but because we were running on empty." Meanwhile, the media remained relentless. Headlines speculated on their absence from public events together. Comment sections questioned their harmony. Some rumors even suggested trouble in paradise. Hyun admitted that seeing those stories, no matter how false, added another layer of weight onto their already strained schedules. But what shifted everything was a realization that came slowly but decisively: they were fighting the wrong enemy. One night, he recalled, "I understood that Ye-jin wasn't upset with me. She was exhausted. And I wasn't angry with her. I was overwhelmed. We were letting the world outside influence the world we were building inside." From that point, they made a conscious choice to face their challenges together instead of separately. They created what Hyun referred to as a new system for their marriage. They agreed to talk openly about anything that bothered them, even small things. They promised to check in with each other daily no matter the schedule. Even if it was a short video call at midnight. They set boundaries so work stress wouldn't spill into their private time. And they made a pact, every week. No matter how hectic, they would spend one evening together without phones, without scripts, without distractions, just the two of them. It wasn't perfect, Hyun said. But it was us trying. He smiled faintly as he recounted the early attempts, burnt dinners, last-minute schedule clashes, conversations interrupted by crying rehearsals or urgent calls. But gradually, the tension decreased. They started meeting not as exhausted actors, but as partners. The misunderstandings faded. The rhythm returned. Ye-jin's own recent comments were then referenced during the briefing. She had said in a magazine interview, "Is teamwork. It doesn't stay strong by itself." When Hyun heard those words being mentioned, he nodded with a tenderness that didn't go unnoticed by the crowd. "She does her best," he said quietly. "More than anyone knows." The lights returned and the cameras resumed recording. There was a subtle shift in the room. Reporters in the front row leaned forward, sensing that the second half of Hyun's revelation would be more intimate and vulnerable than anything he had ever addressed publicly. The actor took his seat again, exhaled slowly, and the atmosphere grew thick with anticipation. This time, he didn't hesitate. He spoke with the gravity of someone who had lived through the highest peaks and the quietest storms of married life, and was ready to reveal how he and son Ye-jin survived those storms. "The hardest period," he began. Ye-jin was pregnant. His voice dropped, the weight of his words pulling the room into silence. Hyun looked down for a brief second before continuing. "It was supposed to be the happiest time," said. "And it was. But it was also one of the most challenging times for both of us." As he explained, he had been filming overseas during the early months of the pregnancy. The schedule was brutal, long shooting days, back-to-back action sequences, constant travel. Meanwhile, son Ye-jin was at home, navigating the physical changes and emotional vulnerabilities that come with pregnancy. What hurt him, he admitted, not being able to be by her side when she needed support the most. There were days when she wasn't feeling well. "Couldn't fly back in time," he said, his jaw tightening with regret. "I would hear her voice on the phone, trying to sound strong, and I knew she was holding back tears." The room remained still. Even the clicking of cameras had quieted. Hyun described nights when he returned to Korea for less than a day, sometimes only a few hours, just so he could see her before boarding another flight. One night, he recalled, arrived home near midnight. She was already asleep. I sat next to her, held her hand, and stayed there until I had to leave for the airport again. He didn't speak that night. But I think that silence meant everything. Swallowing the emotion rising in his throat. 10-minute visits saved our marriage, he added. Because no matter how tired we were, we still chose to show up. The confession hit the room with surprising force. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't glamorous. It was painfully human, an inside look at how even the strongest relationships can bend under pressure. And yet, instead of breaking, they chose to rebuild. But rebuilding wasn't easy. Hyun explained that the stress, distance, and expectations had created moments of tension they weren't proud of. Argued about small things, he admitted. Things we wouldn't argue about normally. But when you're exhausted, even small misunderstandings feel big. There were nights when he came home too drained to speak. Was too emotional to hide how much she missed him. There were texts answered late, calls cut short. Moments where silence stretched longer than intended. Outside their home, tabloids circulated rumors of marital trouble. Only added fuel to internal worries neither wanted to voice. What changed everything, he said, was a conversation that happened during one of his rare breaks, a conversation he described as the turning point. It wasn't a dramatic fight, he said softly. Just honesty. The kind of honesty you only share when you're scared of losing someone. They sat together on their living room floor, air thick with exhaustion and love. Son Ye-jin confessed she felt alone. Even when they were physically together, Hyun admitted he felt guilty. Like he was failing both as a husband and as a soon-to-be father. And for the first time in a long time, didn't hold anything back. We realized we weren't upset with each other, he said. We were upset with the situation. With the pressure. With the distance. We understood that things changed. They began making new rules, not strict or complicated, just human. No matter how busy they were, they would check on each other with at least one meaningful conversation a day. Work stress would not be discussed once they stepped inside their home. If something hurt, they would say it within 24 hours. But it's summer. And every weekend, no matter the cost, they would spend time together, even if it meant staying home and cooking simple meals side by side. These small decisions, Hyun said, stitched their relationship back together. Then, he continued, our son arrived. His expression softened instantly, the corners of his lips lifting into a smile filled with pride and disbelief. Everything changed after that, he said. Holding him, it made all those difficult days worth it. Best at seeing son Ye-jin as a mother was one of the most humbling moments of his life. I saw a different strength in her, he said. Strength I didn't fully appreciate before. There were mornings when he woke up early just to watch her sleep beside their child. There were nights when he took over baby duties so she could rest after long days. And as he admitted with a shy laugh, become quite good at changing diapers. With a baby's arrival, they learned how to become partners in a new way, less glamorous, more grounded. They learned to apologize faster, forgive softer, and prioritize each other without losing themselves to their careers. I think parenthood healed parts of our marriage, Hyun said, looking almost surprised as the words left his mouth. Stopped thinking about what we lacked, and started focusing on what we had. He then addressed one question that had hovered around them for months, why he finally chose to speak now. Because silence wasn't protecting anyone anymore, he explained. People were misunderstanding our relationship. I didn't want Ye-jin or our family to carry that kind of weight. Cleared his throat. Then added with sincerity. Our marriage isn't perfect. Doesn't need to be. What matters is that it's real. The statement resonated so deeply that even seasoned reporters briefly lowered their cameras, as if struck by its simplicity. He leaned back slightly, offering a rare, unguarded smile. We argue. We disagree. We get tired. We choose each other. That's the truth about our marriage. And then came the sentence that dominated headlines within minutes. With everything we've faced, I love her more now than when we first married. It was not delivered dramatically, embellished for the sake of the cameras. It was quiet, steady. Certain, a man speaking from the center of his truth. As the press conference ended, son Ye-jin appeared at the door of the hall, having arrived to pick him up. When he saw her, Hyun's expression softened instantly. He excused himself, walked toward her, and the two exchanged a small, knowing smile, one that spoke louder than any microphone could. The moment the couple stepped out of the ballroom together, hands brushing before intertwining, the photographers captured it. But this time, the photos didn't feel intrusive or sensational. They felt intimate, honest. Two people leaving the room as partners who had survived everything the world threw at them. And as the doors closed behind them, truth hung quietly in the air, raw, human, perfect, and beautiful.